Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for my client Doug's vlog. And we didn't get a lot of footage for this last week. He's already into his next training week. He's a couple days into it. Everything's a lot better. He apologized for kind of the lack of footage here, but I'm like, let's go ahead and get a vlog anyway because I want to talk about what's going on with his training this last week. We've had to do a little bit of deloading. We've had to do a lot of wrist wrapping, lighter stuff for his upper body and benching. Because coming out of this last meet, he just had a lot of fatigue. We had a very successful meet. We were extremely happy with his numbers. We were extremely happy with his total. We got some PRs. We got like a squat PR. We got a deadlift PR, everything out of the meet. We didn't get a bench PR, but his bench was still in that double body weight range. So again, we're happy with that. But coming out of it, he was feeling a little beat up. We did a small deload. He came back in and then felt like he strained his wrist a little just doing normal pressing and things. He's like, his wrist got inflamed. So this last week, we more or less deloaded it. And then this last week also, I cut his volumes way back, let him try to hit some training maxes on all of his lifts, but things got rough. He's like, that 315 close grip was pretty heavy. Again, it felt it hard in his wrist. He ended up going for a deadlift. He said he couldn't pull it off the floor, and it was supposed to be well below his max. Like we came in, it's like, let's just, go for like 90%. A little less than 90% of which you pulled in competition, get a nice solid pull in, and it's just like, I couldn't pull it, coach. So that's the thing, when you're dealing with your lifters, this is something that happens quite often coming out of a powerlifting meet. We walked into the meet real strong. We were very happy with the performance, but he's dealt with a lot of stuff in his personal life since then. So he's dealt with some things happening in the immediate area around it. He walked into a meet dealing with a lot of things on his shoulders going into that meet, and we were able to hold that off through the performance of the meet because the meet is planned. He's like, I need to follow through with this. And we did. And again, we had a very successful powerlifting meet, like a bench in the 350 range. And he competes in the 181, guys. Again, we're up in that double body weight range. That double body weight range, that is extremely successful. He squatted, I think, 451. And it looked good, like it wasn't grindy. We're super happy with that. But here's what happens with your lifters, especially if they've had a lot of things going on. That bounce back coming out of the meet. It's that psychological arousal. And this is one of the things that I tell people, and this is stuff I realized from years ago looking at stuff like Matt Perryman's research, stuff he was doing for his doctoral work. He wrote a book a number of years back called Squat Every Day. But he was also talking about there's data coming out showing that psychological arousal makes recovery more difficult. And in other words, getting psyched up. This is one of the problems I have with pre-workouts. All right? Getting psyched up, all the stimulants and everything. When you go to train, when you go to lift, what happens? The adrenaline and everything else involved seems to impact recovery negatively, even if the workloads are the same. In other words, if you come in and lift whatever, 400 pounds for 8 reps on an exercise, if you do it calm on the same exercise, the recovery element of it versus if you do it psyched up is different. It seems to hit you harder on the recovery side. That's what Perryman and people had uncovered. So this is one reason he had said, look, if you're going to do this sort of training that he was advocating, the Bulgarian light type training, that you have to be calm with it. Okay, you come in and you train calm. Right? It's really just training maxes, even though you're maxing on a squat every day on systems like that. And because otherwise you burn out. So think about that from a cumulative stress of the powerlifting meet. Right? You go in, and what happens all the time, we get really psyched up after meets. How often at the end of a meet do people stand up and go, well, I'm ready for another meet. I'm going to plan one in 3 weeks. You see that all the time. But they got really psyched up and went hard for that competition. Then we hit a wall. And it happens a lot. You hit a wall. And it's sometimes a week later, sometimes 2 weeks later. In his case, we even did a little deload, and then he hit a wall immediately after the deload. The accumulation of psychological stress. This is something we have to be aware of as lifters, and we have to watch for. We have to watch for those signs. In his case, what happened? There was inflammation, wrist inflammation. It made it hard for him to do any training at all involving pressing. So we even pressed, only doing like 135. Right? Doing just work sets with 135 just to get blood flow with his wrist wrapped up. That psychological stress impacts hormonal response. Okay. That hormonal response can start affecting everything downstream in terms of recovery, in terms of inflammation. So be aware of these things, and we have to watch for this. I've seen this myself coming out of powerlifting meets, to where I'm feeling good. Because you guys know me, how many times have I done a meet and I come in and I'm maxing out the next week again? I'm hitting training maxes. I do it all the time. But I've also had a competition to where I was super psyched up. I'm like, I'm ready for more meets. What's the next meet I'm going to do is getting prepped. Right? It was after the Nationals in the UK. And then a couple weeks later, I hit a wall. And it was bad. Right? That was, what year was that in? 2014? It was 9 years ago, I think. I think that sounds about right. But I was doing internet stuff and running YouTube channels and stuff at that time. So, that pretty much happened to me. And I've seen this. So in this case, it's stuff to be aware of, that even though we might feel okay, we need to double check and watch for these signs. Sometimes even when you deload after a meet, sometimes it's not enough. You get that rebound from all of it post-competition, just a little bit down the road. Okay, and when those things happen, you have to back off. You got to recover. Now he's feeling good. He's like, okay, now I'm doing better. He came in and since then he hit a squat PR. He hit one today, I believe, the day I'm filming this from this last week's vlog. Okay, but he needed that recovery time. And look at that deadlift. It's like 435, and he's like, I can't even pull it off the floor. Okay, speaks volumes. Be aware of these psychological components and the physiological response they can have. So this is still an interesting blog for us to cover. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.